We're now on Daf Mem Amud Beis. And we're up to Tashma. So where's this Tashma? You see that Mem Amud Beis has the narrow lines and then the wider lines. So we're looking now at the last of the narrow lines, Tashma. Again, just to remind ourselves, we're trying to clarify whether or not we piggyback two derabbanans, one on top of the other. One is Krovas Chalutzaso. He gave Chalitza to Rachel, and she has a sister named Leah. So the Rabbanan say he's not allowed to marry Leah, even though she's not his Chalutza, but she's the sister of his Chalutza. He can't marry the mother of his Chalutza. He can't marry the daughter of his Chalutza. And we're going to consider Chalitza on a Rabbanan level as a quasi-marriage because of the Zika. And if a man gets married to a woman, he can't marry. He's not allowed to marry her sister, her mother, her daughter. And now, can we piggyback on top of that what's called Shnios Larayos? So we gave an example of Shnios Larayos, which would be a woman's great-grandmother. As far as her mother and her grandmother is concerned, that's an erva doraisa of im ishto or aim ishto. But what about aim ishto? A great-grandmother. And what would be the great-grandmother of his chalutza? He was never married to her. It was his brother's wife, not his wife. But midrabanan, they asked Krovos Chalutza, and how far do we go with that? Do we also include the Shnios Larayos? That's just a review of what we discussed yesterday. Tashma, and now we're quoting our Mishnah. Hi asura bi aviv ubi avi aviv. So the Chalutza is not allowed to marry Yaakov, who is the father of Shimon, also the father of Reuven. She cannot marry Yitzchak, who's the grandfather of her husband, her late husband, Reuven. And the Gemara is medayik now, Ktani Mia Avi Aviv, my love mishum choletz. Ta'avile kalas bino, which is only a shnias larayos dirabana. So the Gemara in the Havamina thinks that the reason why the chalutza, right, we'll call her Rachel, is not allowed to marry neither Shimon. Well, again, Shimon gave a chalitza, so Shimon is out of the picture. But what about Shimon's father, Yaakov, and what about Shimon's grandfather, Yitzchak, who is Shnios Larayos, meaning if she would have been married to Shimon, she, on a Doraisa level, she could marry Yitzchak. Why? She's not allowed, the Torah prohibits her from marrying Yaakov. Let me get this straight, right? Yaakov, the father of her husband. But she's allowed to marry Avi Aviv, the father of her husband, the grandfather of the husband. That prohibition is only d'Rabbanan under the law of Shnios Larayos. So we see here that we're going to piggyback one Zera on top of the other. She's only a chalutza to Shimon, and the Rabbanan prohibited her from marrying Shimon's father under the law of Krovas Chalutzaso. And now we're going to say that she cannot marry Shimon's grandfather, who's a Shnios Larayos, meaning even if she was married to Shimon, on a Doraisa biblical level, she would be allowed to marry Yitzchak, her husband's grandfather. But it's Shnios Larayos, and that is prohibited in the case of a Chalutza. So we see that we do, in fact, piggyback one Gzeira D'Rabbanan on top of another Gzeira D'Rabbanan. Gemara says, Lo, Mishum Misna Dahavile Kalas Bino. This has nothing to do with Chalutza. Forget about Shimon. Let's say Shimon didn't exist. She would still be prohibited from marrying Yitzchak under the law of Shnias Larayos because she was married to Reuven. So let's cut out Shimon. Completely circumvent Shimon. We don't need Shimon in this discussion. Tashma. Let's derive it from the Mishnah that it says bibno ubiben bino. All right, now we're talking about her possibility of getting married to the son of the Choletz or the grandson of the Choletz, which means Shimon has a son, his son has a son, and now Rachel, who's the chalutz of Shimon, wants to marry Shimon's son or Shimon's grandson. And the Mishnah says it's prohibited. My love, mishum choletz. Dahavile Eshes Avi Aviv. The wife of her husband's grandfather. And that's called Shnios Larayos. So again, once again, we see that Erva Doraisa only in this case goes as far as a father, meaning her husband's father, but not her husband's grandfather. No, I'm sorry. That was the previous Tashma. Only her husband's son and not her husband's grandson. So her husband's grandson, vis-a-vis Rachel, and again, we could give it names, but it'll just, for my part, it just confuses us. But we have here the Choletz, which is Shimon. We have a son of Shimon and a grandson of Shimon. The grandson of Shimon, vis-a-vis Rachel, is called Eshes Avi Aviv. Again, she's not really Eshes Avi Aviv, it's only a Chalitza situation, but Midrabanan will consider her like Eshes Avi Aviv. She is the wife of my grandfather. And that's only Shnios Larayos. I cannot marry on a Doraisa, I cannot marry the wife of my father, but the wife of my grandfather, I could marry on a Doraisa level. It's permitted, but it's Shnios Larayos. And here we see from the Mishnah that the Iser Chalitza, meaning of Krovas Chalitzaso, applies even to a grandfather, which is Shnios Larayos. Lo. Once again, the Gemara rejects it for the same reason that it rejected the previous discussion. Mishum misna v'avile eshes avi aviv. Right? Forget about the chalutza situation. Let's just talk about Reuven, her first husband, her late husband. If Reuven's grandson wants to marry his grandfather's wife after the death of his grandfather, which is called Eshes Avi Aviv. Oh, just one second. Eshes Achi Avi Aviv. Just wait. Eshes Achi Avi Aviv. Oh, right. It's an uncle. It's a great uncle. Right? Because we're talking about her prohibition of being married to Shimon's grandson. So Shimon's grandson is also vis-a-vis this Rachel, is a great nephew. Is it a great nephew or a great great nephew? Wait, let's work it out. It's Eshes Achi Avi Aviv. Right. It's it would be a great uncle. Right? Avi Aviv. Let's work this out. So it means that this is Shimon's grandson. Shimon's grandson, and she is the wife of, right? So forgetting, we're cutting out Shimon here. She was married to Reuven. So Shimon's grandson, vis-a-vis Rachel, is Eshes Achi Avi Aviv. So what relationship? That would be a great uncle.
Great uncle.
Right? Do I have that right? A great uncle? So great uncle is Shnios Larayos. So forget about Shimon. It has nothing to do with Chalutza. Even if she didn't have Shimon in the picture as a Chalutza of Shimon. But Shimon is her husband's brother. And his children and grandchildren are prohibited because she was married to the uncle. Or if you want to say it the other way around, if we start with the grandson of Shimon, and he wants to marry his great uncle's wife, his great aunt, Auntie Sally, right? He's not allowed to marry her, but that's Shnios Larayos, but it's only a direct relationship without Chalutza. Shimon didn't give Chalitza to Rachel. It's irrelevant. So the Gemara now raises the following objection: for Meimar Machshir Bi Eshes Achi Avi Aviv. Okay, so now we have to raise the issue of Shnios Larayos. And apparently a Meimar did not accept Eshes Achi Avi Aviv, a great uncle. Now, if let's say we introduce Chalitza, so how does that solve the problem? Then it becomes Eshes Avi Aviv. Oh, I see. So your grandfather's wife is certainly included in Shnios Larayos, even according to Meimar, but your great uncle's wife is not included in Shnios Larayos according to Meimar. So therefore, we're forced to interpret our Mishnah, which prohibits Leah from marrying Shimon's grandson. It must be because of the Isur Chalutza. It cannot be because of her original marriage to Reuven, because that's a relationship of a great uncle, which, according to Meimar, is mutter. A woman is allowed to marry her husband's uncle's. I'm sorry. A nephew is allowed to marry his great uncle's wife, according to Meimar. But forget it. I don't need to introduce the great uncle. All I have to introduce is Chalutza, meaning Shimon's grandfather. And Shimon's grandfather's wife is prohibited, so that Shimon's grandson, vis-a-vis the Chalutza of Shimon, who we view as the wife of Shimon, is now a great aunt. And a great aunt, you're not allowed to marry midin Shnios Larayos. So we see again, according to Meimar, that we can piggyback the Isur of Shnios Larayos on top of Krovas Chalutzos. So the Gemara says, no, that's not so. Meimar Mukila Bibar Bra Disaba. When the Mishnah says Ben Bino, it's referring to Ben Bino Shel Hasaba. Shehu Avi Hames, who is the father of Ruvain, Ve'acholetz, and the father of Shimon. V'hainu sharishanidu bereisha shal mishnah shehi asura bi'aviv. So she cannot marry his father. I guess he means Shimon's father. Yakach hosifu she asura af bibno. So she cannot marry Shimon's son. V'hainu bino shel aviv hasaba. Shasura lachia mesva choletz. Shemisha choletz la echad min achim nesra l'shara achim v'koma below yivna. Kevin shabana shablu yachkach osifu shiasura af ben bino shel aviv hasaba shasura leben achia mesva choletz mishum eshes achi of. Did anybody understand that? I didn't follow it. So again, we're reinterpreting Ben Bino. Right? We thought Ben Bino was Ben Bino Shel Shimon. What are we thinking now? Ben Bino Shel Asaba. Who, right? So Ben Bino Shel Asaba. Who's the Saba here? Yaakov? Ben Bino Shel Asaba. Right, let's say Yaakov is the Saba. Shehu Avi Ames. What was it? How does Ben Bino Shel Asaba? He says it's Tzir Shin Samach Dalet. Okay, I give up. I'm going to have to look at the Tzir. Shin Samach Dalet. John, you have a Masifta? I forget. Not this volume. Okay, that's the problem. But we'll give it a shot. But for this, I need a little extra cavalry here. It's absolutely tiny. Okay, so let's see what happens over here. Liyakov Shlosha Banim, Ruvain, Shimon, Velevi. Okay, we didn't have this. I mean, this is totally new to us. We thought there were two brothers. Now there are three brothers. Ulalevi ben Avram. So Levi has a son named Avram. Nasa Ruvain es Rachel. Okay, that's good news. That's old hat for us. Ruvain marries Rachel. Umes Ruvain below Banim. Benafla Rachel lifnei echav liyibum. So Rachel now falls to Yibum, to both Shimon and Levi. Cholatz Shimon l'Rachel. V'lamadu al zeh b'mishnah sheRachel asura bibno u'biben bino. Okay, that's what we had. So the Gemara says the following: that the word bino, hu Levi, achiv shel Ruvain. The word bino, again, we'll get to Ben Bino in a second, but Bino means the son of Levi. V'aser berachel. So as far as the son of Levi is concerned, we called him Avram. He's not allowed to marry Rachel. Mishum shkevan shebana shuvlo yivna. Just 1 second. So again, Levi himself, who's a brother of Reuven, is not allowed to marry Rachel. Why? Because the chalitza. 1 second. Right, the chalitza of Shimon generates an Eser on all the brothers. So we have another brother named Rachel. He can't marry Rachel. He has a brother named Levi. I mean to say he can't marry Rachel because once she falls for Yibum and he was not miyabim her, he cannot marry her. Now, why is Levi called Beno? The Nikra Beno, Mishum Shu Beno Shel Yaakov, Aviv Shel Shimon HaCholitz. So the word Beno in this context is a borrowed term. It means he's the ben of Yaakov, the father of the Cholitz. Who ben Beno, okay, what does ben Beno mean? So again, once again, Levi is called Beno. And why is he called Beno? Because he's the ben of Yaakov. Ben Beno, who Avram, right, the son of Levi, who's ben Achiv Shel Reuven, right, the nephew of Reuven. So Avram is the nephew of Reuven, and he's called Ben Beno because Beno is a reference to Levi, insofar as he's the son of the Aviyah Choletz, meaning of Yaakov, and now Avram is called Ben Beno. The Aser Barachel, Mishum Shehi Eshes Achi Aviv, his aunt. V'nikra Ben Beno Mishum Shu Ben Beno Shel Yaakov. That was the word Saba that we saw before. Aviv Shel HaCholitz. V'asiba lekach she'hamishna miyacheset osam la'aviyah choletz. Why are we talking about Ben of the Aviyah choletz and Ben Beno shel Aviyah choletz? Mishum shekosav b'reish shel Mishnah hi asura bi'aviv. That she, the chalutza, cannot marry the choletz's father, which is Yaakov. So once he mentions Yaakov, then he talks about Beno Shel Yaakov, which is Levi, and Ben Beno Shel Yaakov, which is Avram. But let's see if we now understand the Gemara's answer. So we're talking about a marriage between Avram and his aunt. So that's not Shnios Larayos. We thought that according to Meimar, we have a clear-cut proof that we're introducing Shnios Larayos, because according to Meimar, a great uncle vis-a-vis his great niece, or a great nephew vis-a-vis his great aunt, is mutter. But as far as the choletz is concerned, it's not a great aunt, it's an aunt. So we must be introducing Shnios Larayos. So Gemara says, no, we're not introducing Shnios Larayos, because we're talking about an aunt and a nephew. Because Leah was married to Reuven, and Levi is the brother of Reuven. Levi's son Avram, vis-a-vis the wife of Reuven, is a nephew and a niece. So we're not talking about Shnius Larayis, we're talking about Arayis Mamash. So why does the Gemara reject this? If this be the case, that Ben Beno means the son of the brother of the choletz, and now we're talking about an erev d'oraisa of an aunt and a nephew. Hainu achiv uben achiv. The same Mishnah mentions ben achiv. This is exactly the identity of Avram, the son of Levi. It's ben achiv. So the Mishnah says already she can't marry. She's not allowed to marry her nephew Avram. Now you're telling me that Ben Beno is also referring to the same nephew Avram, the son of Levi. That's impossible, because then the Mishnah is repeating itself. He says here in the note, Umaksha Agamara, Ihochi Hainu Achivu Ben Achiv, Shenishnu Behemshech, Shehachalutza Asur Bahem, Hainu Achiv Ben Achiv Shalach Ula Meimar, Hareza also Dover Kemo Beno Ben Beno. That Beno is a reference to Levi, and Ben Beno is a reference to Avram ben Levi. Well, what do you mean? Avram ben Levi is excluded and prohibited in the Mishnah because of Achiv ben Achiv. It's ben Achiv. Okay, now let's see how the Gemara is going to handle this one. So the Gemara rejects this and says no. Tana achiv mina av, uktani achiv mina em. We need two cases of achiv. We have achiv mina av, and ben achiv would mean that both Shimon and Reuven share the same father, Yaakov. They are paternal brothers, and that's Ben Achiv, meaning the son of one of these two brothers. I'm not sure if it has to be Avram. I don't even know if we need to introduce Levi. But then we have Achiv uben Achiv shel minaen. He says, Kigon shahameis v'acholetz hayu achim mina av u'minaen ulahem ach nosaf minaen. So Levi, the third brother, shares the mother of Reuven and Shimon, but not the father. V'lo mina av. Shachalutza asura liach zeh. Rachel could not marry Levi. Why can't Rachel marry Levi? Because Levi is a brother to Shimon through the same mother. And we have to add here that there's no mitzvah yibum in the case of Levi, because Levi doesn't share the same father as the deceased, the late Reuven. So that's called Eishes Achshel Makom Mitzvah. So now we're talking about the relationship between Levi and Rachel as an Isa Doraisa of Ach Baila. And it's only Baila Min Ha'em, so there's no Yibum possibility. Now we talk about Avram. Avram is the son of Levi. V'chein asur lebno shel ach zeh. That's Avram, the son of Levi. Mishum iser eshes achi ha'av min ha'em. So you're not allowed to marry your aunt who is married to your father's brother, even if your father's brother is only a maternal brother. However, isuro machmas shnios derabanan. Okay, so you'll ask me, so if it's shnios derabanan, to marry the son of your father's half-brother min ha'em, so then again we have a proof here that on top of chalutza there's an isa derabanan of shnios. No. Eina isa machmas hacholetz, ela machmas hameis. Again, since this is Reuven's nephew through his half-brother Levi, so Avram is the son of Reuven's brother, maternal brother, that's enough to generate an Isa Shnios, which is really interesting when you think about it. In other words, marrying your father's half-brother's, right, for a woman to marry the son of her father's brother, but he's only a half-brother, that itself is not Doraisa, which is really interesting. Because in effect, here's a case where an uncle, a nephew is allowed to marry his aunt. There's a quiz question. Well, I'll wake you up in the middle of the night. I'll ask you, can a nephew marry his aunt on a Torah level? And the answer is yes, if she is the wife of a half-brother, that son of the half-brother, who's a nephew, she can marry on a Torah level. That's only Shniyas Larais. But again, that has nothing to do with Chalutza, and therefore there's no raya at all that there was a Gzera of Shniyas Larais in Chalutza, because it's a direct relationship through Reuven, the deceased. Okay, then, so this is, let's just make a note of where we got up to. Again, we're up to Tashma on Memamid Beis. And this is Titani Rabbi Chia, am I right? So for from the wide lines, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down from the wide lines. Okay, then. So I'll take this opportunity to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. And in Mirz Hashem, I hope the weather the weather should improve